travel isn't just about destinations, it's about the people you meet, the cultures you immerse yourself in, the stories you carry home. I'm Lindile Mqobele, and on my travel feature, I take you on a journey beyond the guidebook. Each week, I connect with fellow travelers, insiders, and storytellers to bring you the heart of every place, whether it's a hidden gem right here in South Africa or a dream destination abroad. Join me as we travel through conversations, memories, and inspiration. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the Desk
with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
So, on our Across the Desk feature today, I am hosting South Africans who live and work abroad. So, I thought we should just get their experiences of what really attracted them. Why did they decide to move? And how did they build their community? Because I can only imagine how difficult it is to be in a country and you don't know a lot of people. So, how did they build their community? How did they adjust? How is the working environment there compared to what they were accustomed to here in South Africa? So I'm going to be introducing you to my guests in a moment, but please feel free to join this conversation. You can call us on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. So we've got Tumelo Setlaba, who is a South African working in the Netherlands in Amsterdam. Tumelo, I saw you 2-3 weeks ago. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having us on the show, Clement. Why at home when we are so far away? Why when we are so far away from home?
We tried to remind you.
Happy to
we remind you of what you're missing out on. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have Ilze Gideons, who's joining us all the way from America. I haven't seen Ilze I think I saw you last year, Ilze. But thank you for joining us. I know you stayed up in Seattle. What time it is now?
It is officially 1:08 a.m. in Seattle. So, but for you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for coming through. So she's in Seattle in the US, and we also have Thulani Menye, who's all the way in London. I didn't get to see him in London 4 weeks ago because, he clearly doesn't want to see me. Thulani, how are you doing? Welcome.
Blaming me. Good morning, Clement, and good morning to the listeners. I'm good. Excited to share some experiences in this show with all different people sitting around the world. So,
Thank you.
Okay.
And we also have Lindile Mqobele, who is a South African working in Dubai. Lindile, thank you for also joining us. Hi. Good, man. Good. Thank you for joining this chat. Okay, I want us to start just briefly with how you guys and when you guys decided to leave the country. And I'll start with you, Tumelo. What was it for you? What attracted you with the opportunity that was presented to you in Amsterdam? And how has it been so far?
What brought me to the Netherlands was an entrepreneurial opportunity. I had the privilege of launching a startup in South Africa with Dutch co-founders called Enabler, which still exists today, by the way. We were creating data sets to train and teach algorithms. This was a few years ago. And then I wanted to go into my next venture. However, it was in e-commerce. And in order for, the project that I wanted to launch to be a success, I thought at the time that I needed big numbers in e-commerce that you would see in the likes of Europe and America.
Yeah.
And so off I went with a venture capital firm, and I was under the freelance or startup or entrepreneurial visa that's known in the Netherlands. And that was the beginning of me launching businesses and owning businesses in Europe.
Yeah.
And how has it been going so far? I would say definitely one of the biggest learnings is that, I think South Africa has so much more to offer than any of us, well, let me speak for myself, than I realized before heading over to Europe. But I think it took me going overseas and experiencing the other side to be able to say, oh, hold on a minute. we actually have a lot to offer. And other than these big numbers that we are chasing, I think we have the full capability of offering those from our homelands. So how is it going? It's going well, but I think I could still do it in South Africa just as well, if not better.
Come back home, Tumelo. Hashtag Tumelo must come back home. Ilze, how about you? You've been in the US for quite a while, actually, Ilze. What sent you over there, and what are you doing now? How has it been so far?
Should actually be in a book. It's a too long of a story, but the short of it is, in 2011, I came over. There was just an opportunity where I took a break in my career in South Africa and came over to the US and immediately got an opportunity to coach Team USA for netball. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
I became the first head coach of the first All-American netball team, and a few months later, the first World University Championships was going to be hosted in Cape Town. So it was just this incredible opportunity that worlds collided at the right time. And so I started there, did a little bit of ministry, was a youth pastor for a long time. And then about 6 years ago, I moved all the way West Coast. I was a speaker at a conference, and someone just kind of headhunted me for 5 months, and I finally caved in, left New York City after 10 years and then, 9 years, and then moved to Seattle for an executive job, which I then actually resigned, and I started my own company 3 years ago in the midst of COVID. What I would say, I would echo what Tumelo said. There's just nothing like home. There's nothing like South Africa. Yes, the financial opportunities, I believe, are a little bit greater for my background and what, the opportunities that I didn't get back home. But the lifestyle, the people, the culture, the food, I mean, the list just goes on and on. There's nothing like Mzansi, ne? Like, so 14, 15 years later, I'm still loving my homeland.
Amazing. And Thulani, how about you? What took you to London, and how is it going so far?
Yeah, quite intriguing, Clement. Actually, today marks, it's actually 2 years. I'm marking a 2-year period in the UK. So quite interesting that I'm having this conversation. And I think, back in 2015, I was thinking about it, actually reflecting that I was already thinking of venturing out and exploring opportunities outside South Africa. And I was looking at my email recently, and I thought to myself, how adventurous then at that early probably process. But I think more than anything, I think for me, it was taking a leap of faith, to be honest, and just seeing what the other world has to offer. And I wanted to broaden my knowledge and experiences. And I knew very well if I was going to come to the UK, I was not going to have a language barrier issue. And so, because I've had friends of mine who live in Germany and live in some countries where there was different languages being spoken. And so that was always a bit of a challenge. So, but I was also fortunate that I worked for the same company in South Africa, which then gave me an opportunity to do similar work in the space of energy industry. So I work as an engineer in the oil and gas industry, and have been working for them for the past 12 and a half years. And so I went to a niche space in aviation. And so that's what I specialize on. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And then lastly, Lindile, you are in Dubai. What took you there, and how is it so far? Lindile, if you can just unmute yourself, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
No, the reason I have to come to this site is because of I wanted to try something different, man. I'm in hospitality space.
Yeah.
So they brought me there. It's my agent from South Africa. So he asked me if there's any possibility if I can work in UAE. I said no. I can do it, man. So yeah, I feel different compared to FA.
That's fascinating.
There's so many South African community. So it's like I'm back home.
That's fascinating.
So safety is 100% of zero crime, zero, 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 zero.
Yeah.
You can walk anytime. Everything is top notch.
Yeah. And that's my next question now to you guys. And Tumelo, let me start with you. How was it adjusting in the Netherlands? Because one of the things that you get stuck with as a South African is the issue of safety. Like, I mean, if you're in Europe, you probably will not want to step out if you've just moved there at 11 p.m., 10 p.m., because you're still thinking, mentality, I'm still in South Africa, anything could happen to me. And people will probably look at you weirdly and say, what are you talking about, ma'am? Of course you can walk around here even at 10. How did you adjust? Are there certain things that you had to unlearn about Mzansi?
Yeah, sure. Look, Clement, the difference in safety is unparalleled, I have to say, when I compare Amsterdam to most of the big cities in South Africa. I tell a lot of my friends, there was a time when I had been in Amsterdam for a couple of weeks, and I almost physically felt my body, there was a tension that kind of unpacked itself and left my body in a way to realize that, I don't have to be so tense. And it was a tension that I actually hadn't been even aware of up until that point. So it's almost like an ignorance is bliss kind of situation, I would say. I think there are so many reasons why there is greater safety and security in the Netherlands versus South Africa. It runs so far deep that it's almost a little bit unfair to compare.
Of course.
And so, if you were to say to someone, South Africa is so much more dangerous than the Netherlands. Sure, but Lerona in South Africa, we have our mechanisms of survival as well. If I hadn't come to the Netherlands, I wouldn't have been so aware of this tension. Although I'm very much aware as well in South Africa, yes, sometimes we do live in fear, but we cope, we manage, we keep it moving as South Africans. But I have to say the safety is quite an advantage. Another security, though, that has stood out for me is that of social security. And that is of the safety net that exists within these markets. If I can just give a slight anecdote, if you'll just give me a few seconds to explain. When I went to go launch my tech startup, I was surrounded by other European counterparts who were in the same position as myself, who were also launching businesses. And I found myself sitting at the table and I asked, so guys, how long are you giving yourselves, to succeed? Because you give it all up, right? You, as an entrepreneur, you put your head down, you don't have the security 9 to 5. You just get in and try to make something of it. And, my counterparts were so shocked by my question. Some were from Norway, some were from Sweden, and they said to me, no, we're not even thinking about that. We haven't even started our entrepreneurial journey. Why would we think about how we're going to end it? And I felt like I had said a faux pas of sort. I thought I had misstepped. I spoke to a family member who had also lived in Europe for a couple of years, and he said, therein, Tumelo, lies the psychology and mentality and difference when you have grown up with a safety net versus when you have not grown up with a social security safety net.
Absolutely.
It runs deep, but it has its advantages and disadvantages. Now, I hope out of everything that I say in this conversation, it's not to say there's a better than or a worse than, but I can say that there's so much more we can leverage as South Africans that can make us quite competitive and quite strong in surviving what the world is really challenging with us all together on the global scale.
Do you own a car? How do you move around in Amsterdam? You've got a bicycle.
Okay, so for those of us who are going to be visiting, a car is the worst mode of transport in Amsterdam. The architecture in Amsterdam actually stems from the 15th and 16th century, a period that they call the Golden Age, which is the architecture is based on that period and hasn't changed much since then. So cars are really not the most ideal mode of transport. Like, I thank my parents so much for teaching me at a young age. It's a happy experience. You see everybody, it's an equalizer. I have to say,
Yes.
You see an old Dutch granny there, waswaya, and you're like, who am I, right, to not be able to do such things? So no, I don't own a car, but I do very proudly own bicycle and daddy.
Yeah, Ilze, how do you move around? So, you've lived in New York as well, right, Ilze? When I met you, I met you in New York, in Brooklyn. I met Ilze, guys, at a Amapiano party in Brooklyn. I went to a party. We were and I didn't know Ilze from a bar of soap, and I was just, because you're in America and there's another piano party and you're like, I'm going to meet some South Africans. And I get there and there's this cool lady who's just so vibrant. And we just started talking. That's how I met Ilze. And we became friends ever since. So how was your experience in Seattle? How do you move around? I know in New York, there's like the sub that people use. Like, is it better to have a car in Seattle, or is the infrastructure fine? And what was that adjustment for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with my 9 years in New York. The subway is just, it's the equalizer there. So you've got, the Wall Street millionaire, and then you've got the homeless, the houseless, all on the subway, commuting every day together. It's the fastest way to get everywhere. And then you walk. New Yorkers are known to walk everywhere. And then about almost now going on to 5-6 years in Seattle, I live downtown, so it's still quite walkable. But most people commute in. I had a car and then I actually got rid of it because it is so expensive. I mean, every building on average about $300 extra on top of your rent to have a car in the garage, which is wild. And so I traded back my car and I just do Ubers. And since the pandemic, these electric bikes and scooters have been introduced. It's quite a huge tech city. My neighbors where I live, it's Google, Amazon, Facebook, just you name it. Everyone's here. So there's designated cycle lanes, and for scooters as well. So I just do a combination of walking, because a lot of my meetings are downtown where I live, scooter or Uber if I'm feeling fancy for the day. So yeah.
The Uber in America is so expensive. Like, you're going 10 minutes away and you're paying 800 Rand. No. I'll take the sub any day. Thulani, how about you? How do you move around? So I met Thulani when did we do the London Marathon? Last year, ne? Yeah, I met Thulani
We did it last year, yeah.
Yeah, so do you run to work, seeing that you are a runner?
Oh my God, running to work. But actually, Clement, I signed up for a cycle to work scheme at work. So we've got that kind of a benefit where we can cycle to work, and the work compensates us for cycling to work. So it's a really great initiative to motivate employees to get active. And that's the easiest. I get to work. Otherwise, you get stuck on traffic, which is just not necessary. The other option is you get on the overground or the underground train. The underground train is just the fastest way of getting to London in the city. So very much easy. And to my surprise, it's just when I got here, it was so interesting that people just, it was very normal to get into a train and my managers, senior managers, it's just very normal. And people would rather be sitting in a train and having a book, reading a book, rather than being stuck in traffic and just being on a car. So it's just simplicity and just finding that kind of uniqueness of doing things differently. Whereas if I was in South Africa, I lived in Joburg and Sandton, and one of the things was like you have to get a car to get around and to get around sites and things like that. Whereas it's just easier here to be actually on a public transport. So that's definitely something that's been very unique.
Yeah. What was the biggest cultural adjustment you guys had to make when you first arrived? Tumelo, what was it? And did it get lonely? Because for some reason, every time I see my friends who live overseas, they get too excited to see you. I mean, Tumelo, when I saw you 3 weeks or so ago, you were nobody Sotho the whole time because you just miss speaking. So is there like the cultural adjustment you had to make, and how did you navigate the loneliness? Because you are in the middle of this city. Sometimes you don't know anyone. Do you build your own community? How long does it even take to build your own community until you're now feeling at home?
Yeah. Look, when you move abroad, the biggest adjustment is that of a cultural one. And for most of us here, we transition from an African context to an otherwise Western context. And so you're going to drill down now into ethos. African ethos is about togetherness. It's about, we can all go down the Ubuntu Ngabantu alley, right? That's fine. But in the Western society, individualism is celebrated, and being able to have that independence and don't have that sort of social dependence on your surroundings. And being able to have that autonomy to kind of just operate as you like, which I actually welcomed. I actually quite enjoyed that liberal idea of not having to greet everywhere I go, or not having to, worry about everyone who surrounds me, which, not that I was worried in South Africa, but I was aware of everyone who surrounded me, and I wanted to acknowledge everyone's existence and everyone's presence around me. So it's not so much that, it was a challenge, but it was definitely a very conscious transition, and not using so much social capital, expending on those around me who otherwise don't really need me to spend it on them. So I think that was probably the biggest adjustment. But fortunately, Rona as South Africans, we seem to find each other somewhere, somehow. You were just saying, Nadina, you found yours somewhere. We find each other. We, I would love to hear from the others, but surprisingly, WhatsApp is a very powerful tool as a connector for us South Africans. There are so many WhatsApp groups, and for those who might be listening from abroad who don't know about this, ask a South African if they are part of a WhatsApp group. And that is such a live ecosystem. Yeah. There is so much knowledge. There is so much support. And I really look forward to seeing how those WhatsApp groups sort of evolve and mature, because I think that is a power that is bubbling under that will really give an identity to the African diaspora footprint. I think that's where the heartbeat is. That's where we all meet. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Ilze, for you?
Sure. This is a huge one for me. It actually played a huge role in starting my company called Ubuntu Travel. So when I first moved to New York, I looked like I could come from anywhere in the world. I was this kid, like, "Que lo que mami, cómo estás?" And I told him, "Hey, I'm from South Africa," and he starts saying, "Hey, stop like dissing your culture. You must be proud to be Dominican." And I was like, and then there's just dialogue all the time when I met people saying, "Oh, what are you?" I'm like, "I'm South African." And then they'd be like, "Oh, I'm a quarter Puerto Rican. I'm a quarter this. I'm an eighth this." And I'm just like, "Well, where were you born?" And that kind of just it still happens, 15 years later. And so definitely the WhatsApp groups, I first found my first Sappers in New York. That was a WhatsApp group that started in New York City, Facebook groups. We had meetups monthly. And then same thing in Seattle. Seattle was a little bit difficult. I did a little bit of DEI work, diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and we had to give a lot of statistics to our clients. So Seattle is actually the second whitest city in the country. It's 340 million people in the US.
Wow.
And in the city of Seattle, it's the second whitest, which was really difficult for me coming from New York, which is like so dense in population. The whole world is in one city. So that was quite like an adjustment. And the South Africans that I met here, had been here a long time, maybe since 94-ish. So, and then I arrived, and then a year later it was COVID. So it was very difficult for me to find community. I found a little bit at church, but not really.
Yeah.
And so I just had to find, the things that I loved, golf, sport, squash, things that I like to do. And that's where I started building my community in Seattle, and they're still close friends of mine here. So, you just find, like Tumelo say, we find a way to find each other.
Yeah.
It still happens consistently.
Have the South African refugees made it into the WhatsApp group?
No comment. I'm gonna go on a tangent there.
Okay, it's 10:32. I'll get Thulani to respond to that question. Thulani and Lindile to respond to that question after the headlines.
Travel isn't just about destinations. It's about the people you meet, the cultures you immerse yourself in, the stories you carry home. I'm Lindile Mqobele, and on my travel feature, I take you on a journey beyond the guidebook. Each week, I connect with fellow travelers, insiders, and storytellers to bring you the heart of every place, whether it's a hidden gem right here in South Africa or a dream destination abroad. Join me as we travel through conversations, memories, and inspiration. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the Desk
with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
23 minutes before 11 o'clock on our Across the Desk feature this morning. I'm hosting South Africans who live abroad, and we're just getting to know about their decision to move and what are they doing overseas and how has it been for them. And I see some of your questions that are coming through for them, so I'll ask them in a moment. So keep them coming on 072-702-1702. That's the number to dial. The WhatsApp line. You can call us as well on 011-883-0702. Maybe you are living abroad somewhere. How has that experience been for you? How did you adjust? Have you found a family? Do you have a WhatsApp group as well? Let me know, please. Thulani, let me find out from you the question I asked Tumelo and Ilze. What was the cultural shock one for you when you arrived in the UK? And do you have a community? I mean, I've got a lot of people who listen to my show from the UK. So I wonder if you guys also have a WhatsApp group there.
Yeah, so I think the biggest cultural shock for me was definitely food, Clement. I mean, I'm a village boy, so I'm used to eating my amasi, umphokoqo. It's one of those things, or sampan beans, man. And you're just like, oh, where can I find this? And, so interesting. I mean, I went to my neighbor, and my colleague advised me, because British people can be very interesting. They are interesting in the sense that they are very polite and very accommodating, but also not direct to tell you, I don't like that, or I don't, So my colleague advised me, said, no, just go and greet your neighbor and just say hi and say that, so that if you travel and you're away, so that they can, look after you. And so I did. And fortunately, my neighbor was actually South African, and she had a South African shop. She had moved here years ago, and she sells biltong, millies, and all of that. I don't know how many times she's brought biltong to my door. So to be honest, I've been really treated from a community point of view from where I stay, and then also in terms of, work environment as well. I think that also has been very kind environment. And then in the social space as well, there's something called stock fair, and I challenge you, Clement. So when you come to London, please, we should consider this. It's called stock fair, where South Africans just gather and on a quarterly basis, and they meet up and they have a braai and papa and chakalaka, the things that we're used to, man. And we just like connect up and just link up with fellow South Africans. And so that's always good to kind of connect up. So a bit of an adjustment at the beginning, definitely, because being far from family and thinking that, you are miles away from family. For you to get home, you need to really plan and think about it. So yeah, definitely that can be mind-boggling. But more than anything, I think I've kind of acclimatized over the 2 years. So if you ask me a question about, let's say, a year ago, I would have probably said, okay, I'm still settling. But to be honest, 2 years now, I'm quite happy. And I think I quite like to be around a safe space where I know that I can wake up at any time and just walk outside and just be free and not be attacked or anything.
Yeah. Lindile, how about you? What was the adjustment like for you? And you did mention that there are lots of South Africans there. Do you guys also hook up once in a while? I think you may be muted there, Lindile.
Okay, can you hear me now, bro?
Yes, go ahead, brother.
I think for me it was lucky because I came here and I joined South African restaurant. So it was very easy for me. In terms of WhatsApp group, we have so many. We have for vacancies. We have for fun. Like after 6 months, we do something like gathering. Like Amopeji, Amazon, Amakosa, Yonge, Lamus. Like so everything was smoothly, man. Even now, I'm still holding.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's cool. So working for a South African company, yeah, that must have made things much easier for you. All right, let's go to some calls now and some WhatsApp voice notes. Guys, I've got some people who've got questions for you, so I'll ask you some of those in a moment. 011-883-0702 is the number to dial. The WhatsApp line 072-702-1702. There's somebody else who lives overseas. Her name is Taki, all the way in Paris, in France. Taki, how are you doing?
Bonjour, Clement.
Bonjour, ça va?
Oui, ça va, merci.
Très bien, merci. So, you live in Paris, Taki. How long have you been there now?
This is actually my 4th year here, and it's just been absolutely incredible. Because one of the guests that you've got, they were talking about safety.
Yeah.
I remember the one time we were going through a deadline, and I needed to run for that day, and I literally went out at 11 p.m. and ran just, on scene. And that is like literally one of my biggest things that I've discovered about being in Paris.
The issue of safety. But also, guys, Taki, like, from her apartment, you can just see the Eiffel Tower. So what a blessed girl. I must say, though, so whenever you go to Paris, Taki will ask you to bring, like, Millie Meal or knickknacks or even Savannah. Am I lying?
You're not.
You're definitely not lying.
So where do you get the South African stuff that you miss? Is there a South African shop? Because you still love your pop, right? You still love your knickknacks. You still love your Savannah. So how do you get that stuff?
So when when anyone is coming to Paris, I just ask knick-knacks or corn bites, you know, that kind of thing. And also, when I go home, I bring like a 2 kg of Millie Meal, and it lasts me for about a year or 2 years. I don't care if it has expired.
Don't get sick there in Paris, please. All right, Taki, all the way from Paris in France. Merci, mon ami. Au revoir. Thank you very much for the call. Okay, so there are a few questions here for you guys. Before that, in fact, let's play this WhatsApp voice note and then I'll get them to respond to the questions.
Good morning, Clement. This is Durant. I'm calling in from Ireland, and I listen to your show every morning through the app. You know, it makes me feel like I'm at home. Originally, I'm from Pretoria. So I was headhunted in 2023. I'm working as a mechanical engineer in Ireland. So I can say in terms of my career, I'm growing. but there are things that I miss about home, the weather and the food and the people. It's just not the same as in, South Africa. But I can say the people here are more nicer, and also career progression. It's much, much faster than it would have been in South Africa. So what I'm learning in 3 months here, I would have learned it in South Africa for 1 year. And yeah, thank you for the show every day, Clement. And that's the show. Bye-bye.
That's the show. That's so cool, man. That's so cool. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, there's a question here about the currency. Someone wants to know, what's the benefit of you guys being paid in the local currency there? My rule with friends who live overseas is when they're in South Africa, they have to take the bill because, Ilze, with those dollars, are you kidding me? Thulani with the pound compared to our rent. So, Ilze, is it a benefit when you come home? Like, are you balling?
Yo, I will say it's nice. It's nice. I'm not gonna lie. But that black tax that we have at home, that everybody expects it. So it's a little hard, but I will say people at home forget when you earn in dollars, your expenses are also in dollars, right?
Yes,
that's the one thing you must remember, family. Our expenses are quite high. So, but it's nice. It's comfortable when we're home. So,
that's so cool. And Thulani? Thulani.
So Clement, the cost of living in the UK is quite very high. So you appreciate that because it's exactly what Liz is saying in terms of expenses. But yeah, definitely when you go home, you start to appreciate that 1 to 20, 1 pound to 24, 25 rands. So yeah, it does kind of make a difference. Yeah.
Tumelo?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely one of the top highlights. I also feel like a very responsible citizen coming home and spending my cash and, pumping it into my home country. It hurts more when I'm paying for my immediate expenses, like Ilze was saying, but there's something that I want to call it pride, maybe, when I'm able to spend money that is otherwise 18x, 25x in South Africa. It feels like I'm contributing in some way or another. So, that's an element that I really do enjoy, I must say.
And then someone else here says, hi, Clement. I listen to LBC and other music radio stations in the UK because I've been considering relocating there for radio station job opportunities. I've noticed that listeners are expressing concerns about Britons leaving the UK to seek job opportunities abroad, while South Africans are successfully finding work in London. I'm curious about how challenging it is to secure employment in a country where its own citizens are also living. Another one says, Clement, good morning to you and the team. I'm enjoying this chat. I just want to find out from your guests, do they think that the financial chances are still great, taking in consideration the economic status in the world? My daughter wants to see herself in London. She's doing a degree in fashion media. So any tips, guys? Maybe let's broaden this question for all the people that are listening to us. Maybe they or their children are considering taking up opportunities in other countries. What tips do you have for them? What should they know before they make the decision to come? Any tips, Tumelo?
Sure. I don't know about tips because, of course, it varies by industry and the timing also matters. But maybe anecdotally, I can say one of the things that confronted me when I moved across to Europe was this major disproportion between productivity and available capital. So what I mean by that is working hours were much lower than what I was used to back home. An average contract is anything from, 30 to 32 hours. It's not a standard 40 hours that you're expected to work. The Netherlands is known to have this very good work-life balance. In fact, I would say it's more over-indexing on the life than the work part of things. But the capital is there, right? There's opportunity to work and to make money. I think coming from a very competitive market like South Africa, to me, it looks like South Africans have a very high work ethic relative to that of the international market. And it goes back to, this has a historical economic context to it. But, to put it simply, we've just had to work harder to have less, actually. So that works in our favor, actually, in a market where we seem a little bit more hungry. We've got more to offer.
Yeah.
So in that space, that helps us sort of differentiate and get things done.
Yeah. Ilze?
I would add as well, though, I've been saying this a lot lately, that your network really is your net worth. So, or net worth is your network, rather, meaning it's really about who you know and who you can get connected to. I had this chat, now yesterday for me. One of my friends moved out here that I grew up with, and we were talking about how hard it is to get ahead, to get a good job, and when you're at a certain age, wanting to earn a certain type of income, it's really helpful to do your homework. Ask your friends, ask people back home, who do they know, who can they connect you to get in the room? Because it's actually it's very difficult in the US. Obviously, now there's a lot of visa issues going on. But besides that, the working life here, it's very tough to get into certain industry. Like Tumelo said, it really depends which industry. But if you can find someone in your industry in another country that can just give you an interview and give you a heads up and a foot in the door, then that's going to be your best bet. It's my biggest tip for anyone that's wanting to work overseas in the current climate of the world. So that's my only tip that I would put there.
Okay. Lindile, for you, any tips for anyone, maybe perhaps thinking about Dubai and maybe moving there?
Yeah, Clement, it's very tricky, man, because these days it's about network.
Yeah.
So if you don't know anyone, it's very hard to come to this side. And I don't encourage anyone to come to this side without knowing anyone, because it's very, very difficult. So you gotta have a connection. Without connection, this side is very, very hard. I don't want to lie to you. I don't want people to realize like coming here. But connection is the only tools that you can use.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thulani?
Sure. Clement, I think the first thing for me is, I think, obviously the unemployment rate in South Africa is already a bit of alarming in terms of, job opportunities. And that really triggers thinking that, South Africans should really be thinking about exploring opportunities outside South Africa at times, because, sometimes the environment is too limiting from a career point of view, growth point of view. And, I think most of the time, it's obviously just limiting our minds and not reaching out and accessing information, for example, internet, LinkedIn, some job opportunities that get offered. I know a lot of accountants and a lot of lawyers that come into the UK. Even though, the British citizens, some of them obviously leave the country because of, sometimes the cost of living, and they leave to Dubai, to some of the countries that kind of have a tax, less taxing kind of, costs in terms of that. But I would say definitely, I think, tips would be find your niche in terms of what you do, in terms of the skills that you can offer. And I think what, like Tumelo said, we definitely come with a bit of ability to maneuver our way as South Africans, because most of the time we deal with unique problems. I worked back in South Africa, and I used to support Nigeria, Mozambique in the aviation space. And, it used to be very interesting because, we face the most unique conundrums, and then when we when I moved over, it was not such of a hassle to, to travel around Europe and solve some of the issues that were, whether it was infrastructure and things like that were happening. So I think South Africans really have a good, experience when they actually experience work in the country and then come abroad as well.
Okay.
Hi, Clement. Yeah, it's Bongani Hlatshwayo. So based in South Australia in Adelaide. I've been out of the country for 3 years now. Look, man, it's not easy sometimes. Sometimes you miss home, you miss people, and it's not easy. But you know what? I think sometimes we just have to adjust. And now I've learned a new sport called footy, so it keeps me going, And sometimes the time difference kills me because I have to watch, the Orlando Pirates versus Chiefs at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But I gotta do it because this is who I am and I love it, man. Sure. Nice show, by the way.
Thank you. That's amazing. Someone says, Kellet on Twitter says, Clement, the lady in Seattle still sounds South African. Weird that she hasn't picked up any accent after so long. Tumelo, accent-wise, I'll come to you, Ilze. Like, did you expect it to? Because, I don't know, how do the Dutch people in Amsterdam sound? Like, you haven't picked up anything?
No, and that's because embarrassingly my Dutch isn't as great as it could be after so much time. Afrikaans definitely helped in high school. I was at my peak at Trappa van Vergelijking, but it hasn't quite got me to where I need to be. So no, I don't think my accent has changed at all. Most of the time I just speak English anyway. That was one of the reasons I moved to Amsterdam, is because most people speak English. But I must say what has kept me in tune with my mother tongue is maintaining relationships with my family. The moment I, don't keep up with my family and talk and call and whatnot, things change. Like Sesotho Saka diminishes a little bit, and that's something I am definitely not willing to give up. So it's actually quite a conscious decision and a deliberate effort to ensure that I maintain who I am. I think most of us South Africans being abroad right now is just a reflection of where our country is at in its maturity and growth. We signify just a different way of developing as a country, and it just requires some level of resilience. It's not easy, but it also comes with actually fortifying who you are. And getting stronger and getting clear on where you come from. And even though you're on different lands, you still know exactly where your roots are while allowing yourself to flourish as far and as wide as you can, given that opportunity.
Yeah, Ilze, it's not a lot of people who are in the US for 10 years or so, and then they still haven't changed, like their accent hasn't been influenced. Some people go to the US for 2 weeks and they come back and they say napkin instead of a serviette. So how have you done it?
I said a prayer. I said, God, please, I love my people. I love my accent. I don't want to change this thing. So it literally started with a prayer. I'm very fortunate that I get to go home a lot. I just came back to the US after 6 months at home. I speak to my family, like Tumelo says, a lot. And then I have a community here as well. We scanner in Afrikaans and vernac and all that stuff. So it all helps. But I will say when I'm in a room with Americans, I've subconsciously rolled that R, can I have some water, please? It does come out when I'm late. I just don't want to repeat myself for sure. But it is, like Tumelo said, very intentional, conscious decision. So that's me.
Thulani, are we going to hear your accent changing soon?
I don't know, Clement. The thing is, I think it's the environment that people work in. It's the amount of people. Like, for an example, I work in a very, environment where I think I'm the only, I would say, African guy that works in that team. And most of them, even if they are black, they will still be British. So yeah, but I think remaining authentic is quite crucial. It's important. I think being yourself, and I think what Tumelo has said, and I think the uniqueness you bring in the room as well, in terms of like how you lay out your views and things like that. And people are very appreciating, and I think it's a big thing on diversity and inclusion. So I think it's just being yourself, and that's it.
Yeah. Oh, guys, I've enjoyed this chat so much. Thank you so much for making time. Tumelo Setlaba, Lindile Mqobele. Tumelo is in the Netherlands, Lindile in Dubai, Ilze in the US, in Seattle, Thulani all the way from London in the UK. Thank you so much, guys, for making time for us.
Travel isn't just about destinations. It's about the people you meet, the cultures you immerse yourself in, the stories you carry home. I'm Lindile Mqobele, and on my travel feature, I take you on a journey beyond the guidebook. Each week, I connect with fellow travelers, insiders, and storytellers to bring you the heart of every place, whether it's a hidden gem right here in South Africa or a dream destination abroad. Join me as we travel through conversations, memories, and inspiration. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.